Hello, I'm back again. Let's see. What am I talking about? I'm talking about like a week of astrology, probably, because there's so much going on. We recently had Mercury retrograding and stationing um, direct, and let's see, it's today. Today, we've got Mercury going direct, but still in the shadow and opposing Pluto. Mm. So how's Mercury retrograde been? Mercury retrograde. That's why people say Mercury and Gatorade. 'Cause it's a mouthful. Seriously. Mouthful. Mercury, you know, in Leo. It's been pretty loud, right? It's been kind of loud and chaotic, right? I feel this irritation that's just like kind of like being stuck in molasses. 'Cause Mercury doesn't like to be stopped. It hasn't quite moved to the next degree yet, so we're just still sitting there. And honestly, Mercury is going to be in the shadow still until about the 24th of August. So we still have time to go over what we've been going over, but hopefully in a more clear way. Hopefully we saw some stuff, had some clarity because of sometimes mistakes, you just learn from them. That's what this Mercury retrograde has been, learning from mistakes. And while Mercury is sitting there opposing Pluto, mm, it might still be playing out, obviously, the mistake phase. But you have to realize that you're learning things on a soul level. The only true failure is giving up. Um, Mercury retrograde times are, when things are breaking down and challenges and stuff, and you're just getting through those challenges because you're not giving up. And so you're not failing. There's no failing. You're learning valuable things every time something breaks. I saw a bunch of cars being towed during this Mercury retrograde, which is just so perfect because Mercury, cars, and I mean it's perfect in astrology, but it sucks when it's you in real life, when it's happening to you. Sucks. So anytime I saw somebody having car problems, I was like, wow, thank God that's not me. And just trying to find gratitude for all the things that were going right, you know. And, speaking of gratitude, that conjunction between Venus and Jupiter which, supposedly this is the luckiest week in the year, which I kind of beg to differ. I really do. I'm just suspicious. Anytime people just blindly say things like this isolated conjunction just means that it's super lucky because we have to pick it apart. Okay. Both of these planets are in the sign of Cancer. And so we have to look at what the moon is doing when they come together. I'll go back a couple days to when they were closer together. This is when mm, around when it was happening. Either way, we've got the moon in Pisces on one day, and the moon in Aries having conjuncted this Saturn and Neptune, which has just been really important, really impactful. So this this conjunction between Venus and Jupiter involve including in bringing in this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. And this is why you have people saying it's the luckiest day, day or the week of the year is because people have that Neptunian veil cloud over them. You know, it's very Neptunian to say that. And whether the moon was in Pisces when this conjunction started happening, and then it moved into Aries and started interacting with Saturn and Neptune in a conjunction in Aries, I think that it sort of was just people just kind of a little bit too quick to say that it's the luckiest year because honestly, what has been going down in our country? What's been happening? We're cleaning up the streets in DC, which on one hand can be a good thing, right? But on the other hand, what realistically are you gonna do with a bunch of homeless people? It's like you can't stay here, but you can go somewhere else. Well, yeah, that doesn't really solve the problem for people, and it might make it worse for some people. It might make their problem exponentially harder trying to get around somewhere that they don't know, they have to migrate somewhere else. Or they're forced to migrate somewhere else because they're homeless and they have to go somewhere that they're not familiar with. And, I'm just playing the compassionate card right here because this conjunction between Jupiter and Venus is in Cancer. So we should be seeing a lot more compassionate behaviors, you would think. It remains to be seen, right? We don't know actually what's happening to the homeless people in Washington, D.C. right now, but I can expect to know that it's not easy for them. And so, do they think it's the luckiest week of the year? Honestly, it's kind of a really blind thing to say, which I guess is why I think it's so Neptunian to say that and to ignore, it's one thing to be looking at these charts and seeing what you see, but um, we can look at Venus in this chart, and let's pick out Venus now. And Venus rolls over Taurus and Libra, right? There's nothing in Taurus right now because it's been vacated. There's nothing in Taurus. So I'm looking at Libra then, and we've got Aries there. Aries and Libra is not happy, chaotic, like I want to say bull in a china shop, but that's almost the wrong metaphor because there's no Taurus. But it's like not being aware of the refined environment that you're in. Mars is just oblivious to that fact. And so, Venus isn't, Venus is happy in Cancer, but, look, Venus looking back at her home at Libra, with having Mars there, kind of just destroying things and just, being silly. Mars is being loud. So, Mars being loud. We've got Jupiter influencing Venus with this conjunction. Mars is getting louder. Yeah. So, it just, I was suspicious of this conjunction between Venus and Jupiter because, yes, they're in good condition, but what is happening in their homes? There's nothing in Sagittarius for Jupiter, and everybody just left Pisces as far as it being the old ruler of Pisces. You know, the North Node is there. And that's not always easy. The North Node is not always easy. The things that we're going through that involve that Pisces energy is not easy energy right now. So I think that the lucky part about that conjunction is if you actually don't have anything happen. That could be the luckiest thing that happens is having nothing happen. You get to just live your life, unlike some other people who aren't able to do that. You know, we can look at the rest of the world and make the same comparison and say that there's a lot of people that aren't, they're not in their homelands anymore. They had to migrate because of war. We're looking at Cancer as a sign of home, homeland, your birthplace, your ancestors, your lineage. Maybe something good will come out of that conjunction one day. It might take a little while though to see something like that realized. And of course, if you're one of the people that think that everything that's happening is a good thing, then obviously you think that it's all good, right? Right. So we'll progress another day. This would be tomorrow. on Thursday. And the moon goes into Taurus. So finally there's something there in Taurus. Moon, finally. So like I said, maybe something good can come out of this conjunction. Hmm, but you may have to have certain sensibilities to appreciate the, positive aspect of the moon being in Taurus. 'Cause those sensibilities are sort of more animalistic, like primal. Taurus is an animal and very earthy. So be interesting to see if some talks of land ownership progress, proceed. And again, it just depends on who you are as to whether or not you think this is a good thing or a bad thing. If borders start changing. So it could be a fortunate thing, all in all, because if the borders shift so that war can stop, then that's a good thing. But borders shifting is uncomfortable for everybody. It's just uncomfortable, no matter if it's stopping a war or not. And Mercury will be finally progressing another degree forward, so we'll finally feel just a little bit more of that forward momentum in our mindset. Mercury with our minds. Is there anything else? Mm, mm, let's see. And then Friday, moon is just further into Taurus. So yeah, Thursday and Friday could be days that we hear about some forward progress with the world events that have been going on with regards to, land management. I am gonna try to avoid just like getting into the fray with like all this war stuff because it's really about the astrology for me, and I'm curious as to what will be actually happening on the next few days during this week, since it's the luckiest week. But I have, I do my videos on Wednesdays because that's the day that I have available. So that's why I go through the week from Wednesday to Wednesday. It's usually how I look at it. And then on Saturday, we have the moon goes into Gemini. Will be conjuncting Uranus. So maybe something unexpected. Something will surprise us. The potential is there for something surprising, where things are happening in the background, you know. I think it was our vice president talking about how things are going on in the background. We won't know about them until they've concluded. So, and I'm not saying that we're gonna find out all this stuff like right away, like right now. I'm just looking at that moon conjuncting Uranus in Gemini, and that'll happen once a month. It's happening this week and this month. So there's probably going to be some shakeups, considering that we will have Jupiter in Cancer for the year. Mm. It'll Jupiter stays in a sign for a year. So we have Jupiter there for a year. And so the moon's mood swings. The moon will be kind of determining, well, the moon will be exaggerated. We'll say it like that. Moon is going to have exaggerated mood swings. And that's why when the moon comes through and is triggered by these and triggers the outer planets through its quicker movement, and then we kind of wait and see just, what is going to happen this time. Because this could be why we're experiencing such rapid movement forward, is that the moon goes by these outer planets and starts triggering everything. So, because it'll go by Pluto first, and then it goes by Saturn, Neptune, and then it goes by Uranus. And then it'll get finally to Jupiter. And so, this triggering rhythm in that order that I just talked about will happen every month. And so we can see that a pattern will start to emerge where something dangerous, something fearful will come into our sphere, the our news feed, if you're paying attention to that stuff. And then it'll be like something in reality happens, which seems like we've never experienced it before. And that's the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. It's like things happening that we only dreamed of before, right? Some of these environmental disasters are like fucking nightmares, right? Right. And then after that phase, we come to the unexpected something. Because the moon triggers Uranus when it goes into Gemini. It's just something to be aware of if you're tracking the moon, that will, the moon will be triggering big swings because Jupiter is in Cancer for the year. So it's adding some exaggerated oomph to that moon. Yeah. So anyways, something unexpected might be going down when we come to the weekend, Saturday. And Saturn will have finally made it back to 0 degrees. Back to 0 degrees, Aries. It's dangerously close to going back into Pisces. And finally leaving that same degree, being on Neptune, the same degree. So there might be a little bit of relief from that like not quite understanding reality or being able to grasp reality. With Neptune and Saturn together just make for a very ungrounded, you know, the yeah, it just makes for everybody being very ungrounded, unsure. You feel like you're swimming around, kind of. It's this weird effect that I've been feeling that things are everywhere. And how's that even possible? Because we're supposed to have a linear reality where things are placed in a physical, logical way, but my mind, the way that I feel, the way that I perceive, and just there's a spiritual sense that there are things everywhere. And maybe it's just getting in touch with the energies beyond the veil. I'm not sure. I'm just putting that out there in case other people are feeling that way too. You get a little bit of relief from that just for a little while until Saturn goes back into Pisces. And then we'll probably be doubling down on that feeling, which will be awesome, right? Awesome. We get to Sunday. Mm, is there anything majorly different? Because the moon is still in Gemini, just further away from Uranus. The other thing about Saturday is that the moon will be trining uh, Pluto too. So unexpected, something to do with fear, maybe. But if you're using that energy in a positive way, it'll be about your power, some soul purpose, personally, for people, as this harmonious trigger with the moon, harmonious energy, which, you know, it just depends on how you're playing your life. I'm not gonna judge people necessarily. I just see that there's a paradox, but that's different. And let's talk about that some other time because this is already a lot longer than I thought it would be. I just, oh, Sunday, okay, and then the moon goes into Cancer on Monday. So coming back home on Monday into Cancer. It's like, what have you guys been doing? Jupiter, Venus in my home. The moon is like, what's been going on here? So, even though Jupiter and Venus are getting further apart, they're still both in Cancer, and it's like now they're gonna have to answer to the Mother Moon as she comes in, a moment of reckoning for that, mm, you know, when Jupiter and Venus came together, it was almost guaranteed that there was too much of something going on. And so it could just be a moment of reckoning as the moon comes in to that field that Jupiter and Venus were in and doing whatever it is that they were doing in your life. So the moment of reckoning of just having some light shed on it because the moon is a luminary and it's coming into a new moon phase too, right? So the moon will be starting to be less and less big, you sliver in the sky. Sort of like mom coming home and doesn't have a whole lot left to tend to what was going on, you know. I feel like there was probably a party that happened with Jupiter here, and Venus was like, yeah, let's have a party. That sounds like fun. And the moon may or may not be cool with that, you know? So we'll see. It just depends on what went down at that party, you know? I don't know, but that just definitely seems to fit. Mercury, Mercury is starting to move along, coming into an opposition with Pallas, which is pattern recognition and strategy. I like to honor Pallas because sometimes Pallas brings in just the extra information that people need, that I need. So, um, trying to see if there's any, uh, I'm probably missing stuff, but this is fun. We'll go to Tuesday, where the moon comes in there in between. Like I said, moment of reckoning. But look at, there's a grand trine happening in here. What is it with? We've got, so it's with one of the nodes. Oh, Black Moon Lilith, Vesta, Juno. What is they doing up here? What are they doing in Scorpio? Seriously, what are they up to? Hmm. This scheming and secret, some kind of secret devotional ritual. Hmm. I just noticed you up there. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, well, Monday and Tuesday, when the moon comes home and says, hey, what's going on? What's been going on in here? How does it make you feel when you think about the way you have been behaving out there? How does it make you feel when you think about the way that you are with your family, what kind of relationship you have with your family? And how does it make you feel? And these are the things that'll probably come up and it'll be very big because Jupiter's there. And Jupiter's gonna make it bigger. Maybe make a bigger deal out of things. Mm, Jupiter's gonna have Jupiter is going to influence the moon to have mood swings. So I just wonder if Tuesday might be, even though we've got this amazing lineup, we still have Mars and Libra, you know, we're gonna be dealing with our relationships. Mars might heat some stuff up, good way, bad way. It's up to you and the way that you live your life, right? I can't predict if something good is going to happen or something bad is going to happen because the way you live your life is going to determine that. I'm not saying that you attract bad things with like you're a good person, something bad happens. Um, you have to see if it is something that actually brings about something that is better, right? Something bad happens because something better was around the corner, right? That kind of thing. You just have to see if that's what is happening. Because at this point in this chart, we have a kite and the points are both on the nodes. And so the top of the kite here with the south node and the bottom with the north node. And so there's some faded stuff happening. And that's why I bring up like how you live your life will determine on how you experience this conjunction between Jupiter, the moon, and Venus next Tuesday. This is just on the side over here. And then on the other side, we've got these cackling witches over here. Vesta is a devotion, but it always represents the feminine archetype. Black Moon Lilith, mm, Lilith, she's a vibe, right? And we've got Juno, who is in Greek Hera, who was the only one that was married to Zeus, who is Jupiter. Jupiter is Zeus. So again, we have another aspect, an angular aspect that says we're going to be dealing with relationships and it's going to be karmically based because of the nodes. Yeah. And don't forget, Mercury's still not out of its shadow and in opposition with Pallas, right? Moving it more and more closer into that exact opposition. So try to stay strategic in here. Try to say to yourself, I'm not in the clear. I can't act a fool. Nobody's ever in the clear to act a fool, but you know what I'm saying. You're not in the clear to say dumb shit because it's just gonna make you look bad, right? So be more strategic. Recognize certain patterns so that you can have the upper hand if that's what it requires with this relationship issue that's coming up. And sometimes, if divorce is in the cards, then you definitely have to look for that upper hand uh, thing and just don't say dumb shit that can be used against you, right? And if you're looking to salvage your relationship, you don't say dumb shit, right? You just don't. It's like really, 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 really don't. And you really want to be strategic in a way that's in a pure sense. What's the word I'm looking for? Wholesome. A wholesome way. You're gonna look to be strategic in a wholesome way if you're trying to save that relationship. And this is for people who are experiencing this like crazy rocking, you know, if it's if Mars is rocking your relationship, then it's a karmic thing. And whether you stay together or split apart, it's gonna take effort either way. So you might as well just try to decide what as wise as you can. I don't know. I feel like it's a good point to make. Yes, this is where these next 2 days, let's see. Monday. Let me go back to Monday. That is where the sun is trining Chiron. So Chiron is the wounded healer. We're gonna be taking up those wounded, you know, uh, your wounds are gonna be triggered probably because that's just what is happening. I mean, honestly, when is that not happening, right? But your wounds are gonna be triggered but it's up to you using the power of the sun to shine a light. The power of the sun is basically looking at something with no fear. The sun is in Leo in its home, solar home in Leo. So it's a good time. It's a really good time to look your traumas and your fears because trauma creates fear, right? So you look them in the face and you say, how am I going to heal? What am I going to learn? Because it's a good time. It's a good day to look at that because you might be dipping into those emotions, you know? So if you're dipping into those emotions that are based in trauma, it's a really good time to dedicate yourself to understanding your inner self better. It's a good time to look into your soul work. How, you know, what is that? It's in your chart. Your soul work is in your chart too. It's just, yeah, it just takes looking at it and teasing it out. Sometimes it's really, really, really obvious. So, all right. I think that, I mean, this video ended up a lot longer than I thought because I went over the whole week. Mm. So, thanks for hanging in there. I had fun. I hope that you got something out of it. Thanks for hanging in there, going through the week with me. And I'll probably see you next week. Yeah. I think I'm digging this. Yeah. All right. Okay. All right.